Washington, from Paris, from Geneva, and from Brussels. So you must not be deceived when you see people celebrating. They are only celebrating because they are wallowing in ignorance. There are three critical moments in the biography of the vertiginous assemblage that is blackness and race. The first moment arrived with the organized despoliation of the Atlantic slave trade from the 15th through the 19th century, through which men and women from Africa were transformed into human objects, human commodities, and human money. They came to belong to others who hated them. They were deprived of their languages and their names. They were shipped, transplanted, trafficked across the Atlantic. That moment led to the second moment, which coincided with the birth of writing towards the end of the 18th century.
Let me come in there, Eddie. With regards to what the DRC and the people of the Congo are celebrating in South Africa currently and all over the world, what you've just said is very loaded. And the people of the Congo have made a decision or have a president-elect whom it is Tshisekedi. This is what they're faced with now. This is the present moment. Transition of power without any violence, which is better? For the people of the Congo to rebuild their country and have a living president take a new president take over from a living president.
Tshisekedi has been awarded 38.7% of the vote. Where is it coming from? Because all throughout the opinion polls, since October 2016, he was trailing. He was number 4 or number 3. The leading contender was always Moise Katumbi. The second position, sometimes it was Etienne Tshisekedi before he passed on. But Felix was always trailing. In the second poll in 2017 in May, he came number 4 with 5%. The third poll in 2018, he came last. So where is the 38.7% coming from?
So
you must understand this is a managed transition. Mm-hmm. And as I've said, they are power sharing deals where the incumbent, who is José Kabila, will still be there in the scene, in the background, calling the shots.
Do you agree with the main opponent, Martin Fayulu's statement that he's denounced the election, saying that it was an election coup? Do you agree with that?
He's justified. Looking at all the factors that have conspired to take this result and give it to this regime, it is clear that there were some negotiations. And you must understand that any negotiation, when it comes to African politics, it doesn't benefit the people. We had a negotiated settlement in South Africa. It was not for you, Lulu. That negotiated settlement was for them and super profits. We had the dismantling of apartheid. It was not for you, Lulu. That dismantling of apartheid was for them and super profits. We had the abolition of slave trade in the United States. That abolition was not for you. It was for them because they realized that the slave trade was not benefiting them. What would benefit them was neoliberalism. And they dismantled the slave trade. There is, every time, when people look at negotiated settlements, they start celebrating. It's because lack of wisdom is prevailing amongst us. When we came back from the plantation in South America and the Caribbean, they promised us neoliberal democracy. To whose benefit is neoliberal democracy in Africa? It is to the ruling elites. Neoliberal democracy has never benefited the African people. To whose benefit are elections held in Africa today? It is to the ruling elites. The same Rothschilds, the same Queens of England, the same people, the George Soros of this world, who rule the world. So we must stop this nonsense of celebrating things that don't belong to us. Lulu, I tell you tonight that elections and post-election results that aim out the voting citizens from the electoral process are undemocratic. Forget about power-sharing deals. Democracy is supposed to mean the rule of the majority.
What's the way forward for the people of the DRC?
The people of the DRC need our solidarity. The people of the DRC have suffered for so long. They have suffered even worse crimes because those people had their first democratically elected president in 1960 put before a firing squad in the night, masterminded by the United Nations, the very organization we have lived to trust and believe in over the centuries. The United Nations, with American intelligence agencies and Western-backed Katanganese secessionists, put Patrice Lumumba before a firing squad in the night in that Katanganese jungle. They liquidated his remains in acid, scattered his remains in the jungle. Today, we recognize the United Nations with its hollow posturing as nothing but puppets of imperialism and neocolonialism. When they meet in Geneva, the question is always, how do we share the cake? And the cake is the DRC. When the Roman Catholic Church meets, when the bishops meet, the predominant question is not how do we save the people of the DRC. The predominant question is always how do we share this magnificent cake, which is the DRC. When the European Union meets in Brussels, the predominant question is not how do we save a people that has suffered for so long. The predominant question is always how do we share the magnificent cake. So Kabila and Felix Tshisekedi are being propped up by the CIA. Martin Fayulu, a former ExxonMobil executive, that's a puppet of global capital. He's being propped up by the EU and the Roman Catholic Church. So you must understand that the Cold War is still there. And Edward, the playground is the DRC. When Mwalimu Julius Nyerere warned us that white people will not kill each other anymore for the plunder of African resources, after the Berlin Conference, they decided that they will never, ever genocide each other for the plunder of African resources. Edward, they will make agreements and share the cake equally amongst themselves.
Edward, I know you have a lot to say. I wish we had more time, and unfortunately, we have run out of that. Thank you so much.